The son becomes the father, the father the son. This is all I can send you, Kal-El. It's not who I am underneath that defines me, but what I do. You want to get nuts? Come on, let's get nuts. Just because someone stumbles and loses their path doesn't mean they're lost forever. You're making me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry. I let my father die because I trusted him. Because he was convinced that I had to wait. That the world was not ready. What do you think? With great power comes great responsibility. We are Groot. We are Groot. We are Groot. We are Groot. We're Groot. We're Groot. We're Groot. I'm with you till the end of the line. Tell me, do you believe? You will. Big man in a suit of armor. Take that off. And what are you? Genius. Billionaire. Playboy. Philanthropist. I am Batman. I could do this all day. Kill any god. None of you seem to understand. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me. You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. If you're nothing without suit, then you shouldn't have it. It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me. And I am Iron Man. Fourth wall break inside the fourth wall break. That's like 16 walls. I believe there's a hero in all of us.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Kiwis and Comic Books down here in New Zealand. I have two New Zealand guests, and one Aussie guest, and me. So the Aussies are being teamed up on 3, 2, 1. Now, before we start, who won the World Cup or the Bledisloe or whatever was going on? I don't pay attention to rugby, but I know a lot of people do.
It was South Africa.
Oh no! Is that why everybody's been quiet lately?
I love the disappointment on you. You're just like, no.
Well, it's kind of like my family's into sports, right? I mean, I used to be into League, and I still love League, but I haven't watched it for about half a decade since I got back into comics. And so it's, the last time I heard something really crazy was I think it was the Black Ferns, the New Zealand ladies rugby team, and my neighbor was screaming early in the morning, going, "What?" So I put it on Facebook. What's going on? Oh, we just beat the Irish or something like that. I'm like, oh, okay. But away from that, let's get to comics. So I want to welcome Dylan Horrocks, our guest, for the first time. This is his complete works. And for those of you guys who love the war games and like the series, I love the series, to be honest. Dylan also wrote the Batgirl. I'm not sure if he did anything else on that Batman world, but I love this whole part of Batman's history where the earthquake happens, and it's the one story that actually made me a fan of Batman, got me becoming into Batman, which was based on the Greg Rucka book, where it was like novelization of that period of those comic books, and so I had to hunt this down, and I haven't opened it, and I've kept it sealed because it's one of our own writings, one of them. So Dylan, please introduce yourself.
Well, hello. Yeah. So I'm currently beaming in from Wellington at the end of a long day, and I have to say that so I was writing Batgirl back in the I guess that was the 2000s. I did that for a couple of years, and the War Games event came right at the end of that time that I was writing Batgirl. I wrote a couple of issues of Legends of the Dark Knight during all of that as well, and a couple of issues of that around that time, not during War Games. And before that, I wrote, for a few years, I was writing Hunter the Age of Magic, which was a Vertigo reboot of the Books of Magic, the old Neil Gaiman series. So that was my main DC work. I did a few other things here and there, but for DC. But otherwise, I guess I'm mostly known for a graphic novel called Hicksville, which came out first in 1998 from originally from Black Eye Comics, and then it's been with Drawn and Quarterly since about 1999, 2000. So Hicksville was my first graphic novel, and the one you held up, Incomplete Works, is a collection of my shorter stuff over the years. And I also have my most recent book was a graphic novel called Sam Zabel and the Magic Pen, which came out in 2014. And since then, I've just been working on multiple other projects, most of which involve comics and role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons and so on. So doing comics about the world of role-playing games. And I'm also teaching these days. So I'm teaching comics and graphic novels and visual storytelling at Victoria University of Wellington down here in the School of Design. So now I just get to watch lots of younger, amazing cartoonists get ready to shake the world.
There we go. Excellent. So yeah, there is the website you can find Hicksville Comics on, and I'm sure there's more there. And it's got all of Dylan's works there. There's quite a lot of graphic works there. So we'll have a look at that soon. Now, Nicole, let's put you on solo and have get you a bit of intro from you.
No, you had my intros last time. I think I've done a couple of intros.
New viewers.
New viewers, yeah, that's true. That's true. So I'm Nicole Kane. Been writing comics for about 7 years now. Excuse the mess. I literally just got home from work. Been doing different sort of styles, genres. I've got a big graphic novel called The Hell Courtesan. I've got my long-standing series, which is Fox and Hound. Have a couple of other little bits and pieces, and we just launched the Objects of Virtue anthology as well, which has been great. So I've been doing this for a bit, and sorry, I'm slightly dying. But yeah, I've got my artists from sort of Australia and all over the world, and been enjoying it. Hopefully continue on with it. But yeah, that's a bit about me.
There we go. Now, Carl.
Yeah.
He's there in the black screen there. You can see. Carl has got a website, and it's let me grab that quickly. It's gosh, I had it there, and then I've lost it there. Let me get that. So as you can see, it's Carl at YouTube at Carl Waaka, WWKA. Oh well, you can see it, right? So Carl, tell us a bit about what you do with your channel, but also what you do in your connection to comic books.
So I'm a comic book collector. I have been since I was about 7. I think about 1982 is I got into the UK comic books. Battle Action was the first comic that I read. And then it went to 2080, and that's where all the greatest creators all started their early times, and was in 2080 and went on to DC and Marvel and everyone.
Sounds gone.
And then I've got a big X-Men collection, and these boxes right here, plastic bins, whatever they are. Yeah. And I've always collected action figures and Doctor Who stuff. I'm into all sorts. Trading cards. Seems to be trading cards at the moment. So my YouTube channel, I just do haul videos and show my favourite things I've got in my collection. And when I get something, if I'm in Christchurch and I buy something, I'll do a video.
All right, so that sort of like kind of ties us all together. Like, I mean, you got creators, you got artists, you got writers, Aussie, New Zealand collectors, and as you know, as you guys know, I started collecting toys and hard out, and one of them we just heard the greatest news of all times. There's a sequel to Constantine starring Keanu Reeves.
Yeah,
right? Yeah. There was talk about him being turned into a black person, and I was like. And that was Jeff Abrams. Jeff Abrams? I don't know. J.J. Abrams was going to do that. And suddenly that's been next. That's been next. And I'm so happy because I love Jono. I love Jono. Jono's the best. He's in my top 3. So to hear the good news about Constantine and Keanu coming back with the same director, with the same writer, is such a cool thing.
Yeah, they announced that. They announced that they were doing it a while ago, but I think it might have just recently been like the stamp of approval went through.
Hey Nugget, how's Wellington? We've got a cartoonist animator in our. This is Nugget.
Did you just say hey Nugget? Yeah, he did that. Nugget.
Sorry, yeah, Nugget is from Wellington. He's an animator as well as a cartoonist, like caricature artist. Yeah, it's well known, but that's his handle on YouTube. But yeah, thank you for joining in. Right, so let's give you the floor, and Dylan, and talk a bit more about how you got started, and if I remember right, you won an Eisner for Hicksville, right?
Yeah, I won an Eisner for what was it? The official category was something like talent deserving of wider recognition, which seemed a bit like winning an award for no one having heard of you. But it was after Hicksville, and for years I'd done a comic book called Pickle, which was published in Canada, and then I was doing a series called Atlas as well at the time for Drawn and Quarterly. And so that's when the Eisner arrived. It was just a kind of recognition for all that stuff that no one had heard of, but which they thought was doing okay. And then I had other stuff that was for a while I was like one of those endless bridesmaids. I'd get nominated for all the awards, but didn't necessarily win them. So I've been drawing comics, God, a long time. Apparently my first words were Donald Duck, and I've been drawing comics, I think, before I could even really write words. It just felt like comics were my first language of storytelling. And I grew up reading just all kinds of stuff. Tintin, the French and Belgian comics, British stuff. It was great to hear mention of battle action in 2008. They were a big part of my teenage years.
Yeah.
And so in the 1980s, I was starting to do comics for,
look at that.
So by the 1980s, when I was at university, I was doing comics for local magazines like Strips and Razor and the New Zealand Comics Gazette and so on, and also sending stuff to Fox Comics in Australia. And then by 1989, I moved to England, and I was doing a lot of stuff locally there for various little magazines. Ended up picked up in the 1990s by publishers in North America, and that's when I did my series Pickle and serialized Hicksville. But so I've kind of really since about 1995, I was kind of a full-time freelancer, and I was doing comics as much as I could. But it wasn't that easy to make a living from doing comics, certainly back then, not from New Zealand. So I also did a lot of illustration work and so on. And then really, when Hicksville, my first graphic novel, came out in '98, that really kind of put on the map with the industry people, and it's out of that I got the DC work, and Hicksville was published in Europe by various publishers as well. So, in fact, I sometimes think I've probably sold as many comics in French as I have in English. It's only been in the last 13 years that I've had a publisher in New Zealand. So my books here are now published by Te Herenga Waaka Press, which used to be Victoria University Press. And they've published a number of graphic novels, not just mine, but also Tara Black's graphic novel, This Is Not a Pipe, and 2 books by Sarah Lang, including Mansfield and Me. So they've become, within New Zealand, Te Herenga Waaka Press, which is like one of our main literary publishers, has also become one of our main publishers of graphic novels.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but over that time, I mean, for most of my career, I've been published overseas. It was too hard to get a publisher here in New Zealand. So I lived here. I was sending work to publishers in North America, France, and so on.
And with 1995, this is like before internet being so easy available. So were you sending like packages? Or...
I remember it was just starting to get, I remember getting the internet for the first time around 1996-7, and suddenly I could communicate by email with publishers overseas. So my publisher at the time in Canada, we'd just been communicating by fax and by letter, and it was hard work. But once we were able to talk by email, it became a lot easier. And also it was the period of the emergence of message boards, like the Comics Journal message board, which became a real hotbed of comics discussion and debate and shit fights and the rest of it. And for a while, that became my way of being part of the scene overseas. Because here I had good friends who were cartoonists, people like Timothy Kidd and Lars Corley and Cornelius Stone, but I didn't, there wasn't an industry here. And there was a very active, lively scene, but there wasn't an industry. And having the internet meant that I could still feel like I was part of the industry over there, and I was keeping up with the gossip on the daily and getting opportunities and so on. And I think that was a big part of how I was able to then be a full-time comics creator from New Zealand for years. Also, the New Zealand dollar was really low in the early 2000s. So I'd get these checks from DC and take them to the bank, and they'd just multiply it by 3 or something. So it was really good money for a while. And then the dollar went up, and I was like, oh, damn, as an exporter, this is really bad. But yeah, so that's really been me. And it's really, I guess I've been doing this semi-professionally or fully professionally for about 30 years. No, longer. Well, let's say 30. Coming up for about 35 years. And I've just seen, it just has changed so much over that time. So now I can have a publisher here in New Zealand, and that publisher is pushing other New Zealand cartoonists as well. And then we have this thriving scene has started to turn into a kind of local industry. So now there would be a new local graphic novel being published at least a couple of times a year. And you can find them in bookshops, and they're in all the libraries. And, we just had Nen Wenlock brought out Tsunami from Earth's End, which is Earth's End, of course, are now a dedicated graphic novel publisher. That's all they do. They only do about a book a year, but it's a big event every time. And then we have people like Rachel Smythe. I mean, Lore Olympus is the most popular webtoon in the world.
I mean, I keep hearing it. I didn't even know it was New Zealand until you just mentioned it now.
Rachel Smythe. I mean, she was here in Wellington for a long time. Has now moved to the South Island, but and there are others too, like Kay O'Neill, who's in Christchurch, who did the Tea Dragons books, which are published by, is it Oni? I think published those. And they have a big following. I mean, we've now got, I don't know, maybe a half a dozen at least comics creators in New Zealand who are just full-time comics creators. People like Ben Stenbeck, who's worked with Mike Mignola on Hellboy and BPRD, and has now got his own series. Our Bones Dust is just coming out. I just feel like the transformation in the last 30 years has been amazing to watch. And it hasn't just happened. A lot of people have worked really hard to open up that space for local comics creators. And it's not just the cartoonists, but also the people who are now publishing, and a lot of librarians have been really involved in that. And like we're now at the National Library, there's the New Zealand Cartoon and Comics Archive, which is based at the Turnbull Library, and that's being run by Sam Orchard, who's a fantastic cartoonist himself. Has a new graphic novel coming out soon.
Brilliant.
And they're running a festival that happens every 2 years called Comics Fest. I mean, it just feels like everything's finally coming together. We're transitioning from being just a scene to actually having a kind of increasingly healthy industry as well. So that's been great. And the teaching is a joy. I mean, I'm teaching every year. I teach like 60 to 100 students who are making comics that just knock my socks off. And I supervised a master's project recently where someone finished a graphic novel, a woman called Diane Morris. She finished a graphic novel, which is all about New Zealand history. That's now sitting on the desk of a major publisher here in New Zealand. It feels like so much is happening now. It's very, very exciting.
Yeah, I think, the last sort of like 10, 15 years of the struggling Kiwi comic book, with all these publishers actually putting a really quality works, like you said, and with Adrian
Kinnear.
That's the word, Kinnear.
Yeah.
I always forget how to pronounce that. Yeah, Adrian Kinnear. I've got it. I'll bring it out in a sec. But putting out, even like you said, he puts out once a year, but the quality and the standard and the fact they end up in bookshops as well as comic shops. And then also you've got Funtime Comics, Anthology, and, with what Jason's doing down there in Christchurch, you've got all these feeder things starting up as well. Like here in Whangarei, you've got Makes Comics New Zealand, which they get together. A couple of my friends and other people get together on a Sunday once a month or twice a month, and they've just put out a zine, right, just to show off what they're doing while they're working together, trying to get inspiration. And then you've got people all around New Zealand now trying that as well. But the other cottage part of that is that there's all these independent, small community conventions, right? And which allows local artists to show their work, as well as like the commercial, comic books out there putting it out, like, Marvel and DC comics, next to these young creators or older creators, depending how old they are or how long they've been doing this. But it allows them to be right next to that Marvel or DC book that everybody knows about. And that's kind of like elevating the quality of our own creations in New Zealand, but also showing that there is creators in New Zealand in comic books. And, we had Ant Sang on a couple of weeks ago, and last week we had Shane. But this is not just New Zealand. This is also over in Australia, as Nicole can attest. There's amazing folks out there putting out lots of great books. I mean, Nicole, she's on like, whatever, 6 or 7. Oh, it's 11. I can't remember exactly what number.
There's too many.
Yeah. And so that's allowing the next generation to be encouraged that there is a career type setup if you're willing to put in the hard yards. I mean, 35 years you were mentioning? I mean, that's a long, slugger. And yet you didn't get published in New Zealand, you got published overseas, and now it's come back home.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is that for a long time you could only be published overseas. But that's what's changed. And Australia feels like Australia. There's all sorts of great energy happening over there. And I mean, a graphic novel won a major literary prize recently in Australia. So
yeah. So over here it's pretty jam packed. We don't have that many publishers though. I think we've only got like one. So I think that still has a lot of room to grow in the industry. I can see it. Like you can see where it's heading, but right now it's still all of us doing our own little thing and sort of hitting up people overseas, or just publishing it ourselves and putting it on our own websites and whatnot, which is good. It's good. I think the community over here is really tight knit, and I think that we really do sort of look out for each other and jump into everyone else's sort of stuff, which is awesome. Like I'm constantly talking to the guys. Like we've got our own little chat and whatnot, and then we've got Facebook groups and stuff like that with all the Aussies in it. So yeah, we're constantly like, what are you doing? What are you attending? What are you working on? So I think that's that little spirit of that community, which is so nice. It's much nicer than say the cosplay community, who are toxic and terrible. Not to say that all cosplayers are like that, but it does get that way. And I think because
I face them, I know they are like that.
Yeah. I think we're not competing against each other either. Like we want to support each other. That's the difference. I think if you're competing against somebody, you get that sort of that rivalry and that jadedness. But because we all want to watch each other succeed, and we want to sort of read each other's books and like I just did a piece for Antonio for his anthology that's on Kickstarter at the moment. It's the 9 tales.
I'll bring that up. Give me one second.
Yeah.
So is it this one? Where are we?
That's the one. Yeah. I just did a piece for that because he asked me to, and I love working with other creators, especially Aussie ones, and close to home ones, because it just makes you feel like you're not only supporting your community, but you're showing what we have and what we get to offer the world. We get forgotten down here sometimes, especially in Australia and New Zealand. We get forgotten, and it's like, we're amazing. And I think when IDW came out here once a couple of years ago, they were shocked. They were like, wow, there's so much stuff here. And it's like, yes, we do create down here. We do have the internet. We can talk to you. So, but yeah, I love working with other Aussies all the time, and I can't wait to see what new ones pop up. Like I meet new creators all the time at conventions, and they're always talking to me, and it's just so nice to be like, I've been doing it for 7 years, and Dylan's obviously been doing this for way longer. But it's nice to see those new people pop into it and have that excitement, and sort of reinvigorates your excitement to keep going and doing it again. At least that's what I find.
Yeah. And I feel like the process of building a supportive infrastructure that can make it possible, that's a collective project. Like, you don't get the kind of infrastructure that's emerging around comics in New Zealand and Australia, like publishing, like events, conventions, things like that. That doesn't happen just by one person pursuing their own interests. It happens because we're all trying to build something that supports each other.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, one thing that I feel like I see some of, but we could do with more is more conversations between Australian and New Zealand comics people. The two scenes have quite a lot of connections, but we tend to operate quite independently of each other. And the more we can, communicate with each other, do shared events, things like that, the stronger I think it'll be. Yeah,
we're a hop, skip, and a jump away. Like sometimes people forget how close we are, and it's like you can go over to those events. It's probably closer to go to New Zealand from Sydney than it is to go to Perth. And that's the same bloody country. And cheaper, cheaper. Yeah. So it's like, why not? Why not? Don't. Sorry, my cat is wanting my attention because I just got home and now he thinks that he can jump on my shelf. Oh,
I think we all want to see the cat.
see this? See this?
Oh,
He's just
yeah.
trying to jump on the comic shelf. Say hi to everybody. Say hi. He just wants my attention when I get home, and I'm like, no, because he's not usually allowed in the study. So he sees, look at him. He's like, excuse me, I want attention. Oh,
Yeah.
He's terrible. But yeah, I think that should be a thing. I definitely think that New Zealand and Australians should really join together and really sort of like make something to strengthen the bond between us, especially down here. Like, you know, sometimes I do feel like we're a bit forgotten, but then I, you know, take 2 steps back and look at how far so many people have gotten and how amazing their careers have just shot up in both long and short amount of time. And you're like, okay, you just got to keep going with it. So,
Carl,
Yeah.
welcome back. Hey,
Yeah.
so
Sorry about that.
that's fine. Like, so let's now I know that you support independent comics. So do you have anything close by you want to put up there? And I'll get rid of the screen so we can have a look at that. So, you know, so as we mentioned earlier, Carl Waaka has his own YouTube channel, and you know, we talks about comics and stuff, and so I'm looking forward to, because you suggested he's going to be talking about doing some videos about this thing, and I'm a huge fan of. This is what I grew up on, man. Like, this is my you know, my jam. So, you know, one of my artist friends.
Look at that! I like that.
Shane Evans, who just released the second issue of his comic book, Chronicles of the Wasteland. I'll bring it up soon. But you know, that's his art style, but you know, it's whenever I see talent around, you know, I think we've got to put them out there, because how else is people going to see people around the world or what's going on quality wise in New Zealand? But you know, with Kyle, you know, he's supporting independent creators as well as, you know, as comics. So let's have a look at some of the stuff you've got there, bud.
I bet who did I back? My mate, you had him on your show.
Niobe, right? Niobe Comics.
Niobe, Larry Higgins. So I've got his.
Okay, let's have a look at this. Check this out.
So we've got Niobe #1. So I'll give him a plug. Larry Higgins is the creator of Niobe. He's a friend of mine, and we crossed paths on YouTube many years ago. And so I backed his books. This is the first run when he was. He's a bit bigger now. Well, he's doing a lot better now, you know. And he's from Canada. So this comic.
So this is a side of like Kickstarter and crowdfunding comics, where you can put up variant covers, and you can, you know, you can back whatever cover you want, and you'll get that. So this is like a cosplay version of Niobe cosplay of Phoenix, right? But this is the actual character there, which is a gorgeous piece of art, and he's got some amazing artists who work with him on this just to do cover art.
It's pretty cool. It's good to watch. I've been watching him from a distance, and now he's finally doing quite well, you know. And he struggled for years on this, on it with the Kickstarters, and he just, you know. So I've been backing his book a wee bit over the years. So that's the only stuff I can find at the moment. It'll be somewhere. But I'll give him a plug. Larry Higgins, you can find him on Kickstarter.
You can also see him on, like, he's got his own channel. It's Niobe Comics on YouTube.
Comics. Yeah, he used to be called Rebel Comics. He used to be called Rebel Comics, but now he goes under the Niobe banner. But that's how I met him.
One of the good things about his channel is that he has a lot of independent publishers already out there, and they advise, you know, not to say, hey, this is how you do it, or you should do this. It's kind of like, here's what we have done and what's worked. And they do a really good advice to newcomers like myself to the independent crowdfunding scene, you know. So I paid a lot of attention to them when we were doing our Kickstarter July or something.
Yeah, it was around that. It was early.
Yeah.
I remember when you did it.
And we were doing this out there, and so it was like, what do I do? And I was like throwing, everything at the fan, right? Just everything. Yeah, we'll get this, we'll do this, we'll get that. And once I finished, I came out of going, no, let's take some advice, let's learn from this and have a look at that. So we've just sent this off to the printers, and it's going to get all this stuff out there. And this is this where you can do different covers and stuff, and working with people from Mexico and from America, to put this out, as well as, of course, as Shane's cover here adorns our comic book, and it, of course, is wraparound. But I think the joy for us Kiwis and for Aussies, right, for when we can't break into, or if you want to just do your own thing, right, if you just want to create your own work, is that you can actually do stuff through crowdfunding, which has become a huge thing now. Even the professionals are using it. Like I think it was the other day, was like somebody walked in and there was $1,000 on the table on the first 7 hours or something because of their name alone. It had nothing to do with what the story was. It had nothing to do with who was what subject it was. It was just name, boom.
Yeah.
And it's like basically the same, like it's like in the in the mainstream comics. It's just basically taking that into there. However, you've got other people out here, who've been doing indie comics and crowdfunding for years and been putting out there. But like people like Kyle, right? There are people out there backing that because they want a specific, early release, or variant covers, or little, special things that come with it, chart skits and stuff, right? And now I want to go back to how Courtesan with your one.
Oh yeah, that was one of my ones. Because when you were saying, like people who have been backing consecutively, I've got with Fox and Hound. I've had people come back from the first Kickstarter all the way to the newest one, which was number 5, and we've got number 6, which is the first arc being done. That's they've already been like, yep, we're definitely back for the next one. So I think that's the best thing about some of these collectors, that they really do appreciate what you're putting out there, and that it's going to be loved and acknowledged and really respected as the work. Not only that, and they just like to read it as well. So Yeah,
I mean, it's like you're able to, how was it like going for the first time, right? Like doing your first project out here?
Oh, okay. So my first project completely failed.
Right.
And that's fine because it's sort of like a rite of passage. It's that moment where Neo jumps the buildings and he falls and they say nobody gets it the first time. And it's absolutely correct. No one gets it the first time. So I learned so much from that failure that I always kind of go back to it and think that was the point where I sort of started to grow, and it's come quite a way since then. But the project, after I failed it, basically, it did get put on hold because I came back to it a couple of years later and I went, you know what, this doesn't look right. It doesn't look as good as it could be. The idea is there. The execution and everything else that went with it was poor. And that was because I was inexperienced. Now that I've got a bit more experience, I can execute it better. So it's kind of a good thing. He does this sometimes. He just kind of...
I was having a look at your comic book last night. The first story, the black and white one.
Black and white one?
Oh, was it your one? The one, or whatever it was, the graphic novel thing? Who was that? Was it? Yeah, it was you, was it?
Nope.
No.
I do all of my stuff in color.
Oh, okay.
You're on the mic. Turn your mic on. Nope. He's still got it off. And he's talking. There we go.
Antonio's. So that was Antonio's book.
Oh, Antonio's. Yeah.
So he sent me a preview of it, and so that's what we were sharing before. Let me just grab it there again. So it was it's kind of like a review book, and let me just grab it. So this is his first one, so you got to see what
Yeah.
the first one was like. And you had there's a manga, and then it has fantasy artwork and stuff in their story that's ongoing. So this was
Yeah.
like a sample of what you could expect. Now and then, so this is volume 1. So he's up to volume 3 now of these anthology
Yeah, volume
series.
3.
Yeah. So you're in that one.
Yeah,
Nicole?
we did a Fox and Hound crossover for it. So this is the
Nice.
second Fox and Hound crossover we've done. So I'm starting to be like, oh, maybe they're just going to travel a multiverse at some point. But
Yeah.
yeah,
cool.
they're sort of doing some weird stuff now, which is awesome because people are starting to recognize them and know them and like them.
Yeah.
And I think that's just because of the longevity of the project. And we're not stopping after issue 6. That's going to be the first arc. That's going to be the first trade. And then we're going to move on to arc 2, 3, 4, however long Chris wants to still do my work.
Cool.
But yeah, like I completely understand what you're saying with Kickstarters. And, there are people who like the different things. And I think that's the weird thing about being a creator with Kickstarter is that you have so much choice that sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. Like you don't know what to put in the Kickstarter and you don't know what people are going to like.
Yeah.
And then you get different reactions. I made some like clear standee things for one of my Kickstarters and people were like meh about them. But then when I took them to convention and put them on the table, people were going crazy. And they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. So yeah, it's a bit of a up and down sort of thing. But you wanted to ask me a question about that, Hell Courtesan.
Now I forgot it. Oh yeah, like what? Gosh, I've forgotten. So I'm going to go back to Carl here. So what was it about as a backer, right? So someone like a backer who goes to crowdfunding, and what was your reason to actually back something that you had possibly no idea about what the story was going to be like?
Because I'd watched Larry's video, and he was I wanted to back him because he's a friend of mine, and that was the main reason. Plus, that was the main reason, and I wanted to support my friend, and ended up buying a few of his books, and another mate of his, Steve's book as well. I can't find that. I don't know where that is, but that's the reason why I was into it. But they were cool, and just watching other people, on YouTube talking about their books, and also like the mainstream comic books are so dull and boring these days. I find, it's quite good to go to the indies and independent people because they're writing way better stories.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you talked earlier. You're talking about like Nicole about how the first one failed, right? So this was my first attempt at putting out the Incredible comic book, like self-publishing last year. Yeah. So when you look at something like that and you go, am I really want to introduce this version to the world first of my very, very, very personal character, right? Something that I really like and I want to to create. And then, and then you go, you make a choice whether, no, I'm going to re-gig it. So it took us 2 years to get to the point of saying, I'm going to get a new artist, and get a colorist when all the artwork's done, and then, and then build on that. Now, what I was going to ask is, when the first, when you went away with that, right? When did you come back to the first one again after that? Why did it fail? Do you think?
Well, it failed. It was my fault. Let's be honest here. It was my fault. I didn't know what I was doing. I sort of just took the first artist that I could find. It wasn't a great script. The script was very mediocre, and it was very plain. Like, it was very formulaic. It didn't have any soul to it. And I sort of went, well, that's not good enough, sort of thing. And all I had was the pencils, and I really sort of was daunted just by that. And then having to get a colorist, an inker, a letterer, all those bits and pieces. And I didn't understand that you could do it digitally, or that, throughout the years I've learned how to letter. I'm learning how to color right now, so you can do these things if you have to by yourself. But I came back to it about just before COVID, I would say. I came back to that story. Something popped it into my head, and I pulled out, because I print out all of my scripts just for a hard copy in case my computer dies or something like that. I looked at the hard copies and I said, okay, there is a good concept in here, but it needs work. It needs soul. It needs heart. It needs the characters. You need to fall in love with them. There's nothing worse than having a bland character where they're just on screen and talking, and you don't feel anything for them. And if they die or if something tragic happens to them, you're just reading it and going, meh, I don't care. Which, that's the goal. You want to make your readers fall in love with them so they come back time and time again and keep reading. So that's why I think people like, TV shows and stuff like that, where they've got a long-standing character, like Stranger Things, for example. People fell in love with those 4 kids.
Yeah.
5 kids. I don't know. But they fell in love with those characters. That's what brings people back season after season after season, because you want to keep reading their story. You want to keep knowing their story. So, yeah, that's just a little part on me. And I'm hoping to do that with my next few standing series, my longer ones.
Yeah.
So I've really, over the years, thought about what people want out of a comic book. Not just, here's a superhero, they're flying around the world and they're saving people. It's what do you really want to get out of this? Is there a story behind it? Is there a moral? Is there entertainment? Like, what's the point of this one? So,
no, Dylan, because you got a publisher, but I mean, have you ever self-published? Because what was it? I was looking at that.
oh yeah.
I just had it there before. I can't, when we're looking at your website, it was gosh, let me just get back to that so I can.
I've done. I started really by doing zines. When I started publishing, it was in the 1980s when photocopying had become, over the course of the 1980s, photocopying went from being rare and quite expensive to being kind of everywhere and a lot cheaper. And so we were able to publish our own comics much more cheaply. And so I started out just making zines. I would print them at work when I was working in a bookshop, and when the manager wasn't around, I'd sneak into the office and print them up on the photocopier there. And it was through those zines that I then got professional publishers. But I kept making zines. I've always found that to be the most deeply satisfying way of publishing, because I'm in complete control of every part of it, and I love the handmade aspect of it. And I also love going to events like Zine Fest and just hand selling copies to people. It just feels like being an artist who's making stuff for a community, rather than just making a commercial product that someone's going to sell. So I've always loved it, and I still do. I've got a new zine series called Secret Door, which is I did the first issue this year, and it's all about tabletop role-playing games, and it's got comics in it and various things. And it just feels very free. It just feels like I can make whatever the hell I want. So I'm always doing, I'm doing the bigger stuff with people, but often making my own stuff is where I feel completely, it's just me, and it feels very, very free. And I feel like in New Zealand and in Australia, there's a certain number of people that are doing this professionally, and there's a kind of an emerging industry around that. But actually, I feel most at home when I go along to an event like a Zine Fest, and there'll be some young cartoonist who's made a a little 16-page zine that I just love. You know, it's just this beautiful little thing. There might be 50 copies of it in the entire world, and yet it'll be one of my favorite things I've seen. And a lot of my students, that's, you know, what they do, and some of our graduates continue making stuff. And, you know, some of them get professional work, and some of them are making zines that are read by a lot less people, but they're so beautiful. And also, like, you know, Nicole, you're making really good use of Kickstarter, and that's, and you as well, Aru, have been using Kickstarter. That's opening up possibilities for a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that next, but carry on.
Yeah, and but also webcomics. So I feel like that's another space in which webcomics today are a little bit like what zines were to us in the 1980s and 90s.
Yeah, totally. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
it's our new version of it, basically.
Yeah, and so, you know, again, here there's people like Sloan Hong and Hana Chitani who are making this amazing, just beautiful comics and books. There's in the UK, there's a woman that runs an amazing festival called Shortbox Comics Festival, and it's each year it's an online festival, and each year they carefully select, I can't remember how many, but it's like a few dozen digital comics that they then make available for 1 month on this website. And Sloan and Hannah have both been in, I think, the last couple of years with, and their books are just amazing. I mean, they should be being published by some professional publisher overseas as well.
Yeah.
Amazing books. And they were part of Shortbox. People like, I mean, obviously Rachel Smythe, you know, but also Jem Yoshioka, who's been doing great stuff through Webtoons. And for years, we've had online strips by people like Greg Tchaikovsky, who does Loading Artist, and Lee Chen, who does Extraordinary Comics. That's like a full-time professional gig for them, doing these web strips from Auckland, you know, that are read by many, many thousands of people around the world. They've got successful Patreons, you know, Patreon, Kickstarter, all of these ways in which people have been able to piece together the resources to get stuff out into the world, but also, in many cases, an income. And that's been revolutionary. I mean, it's really changed the ball game. My Kickstarter is it's hard work. They've never done one. I'm like, it's just
so much work. I'm gonna tell you right off the bat, it's so much work. Yeah.
It's. I mean, just someone who's just come into it for the first time. Yeah, it's a ton of work. But here's the thing, right? If you're an artist already, this is the thing. If you're an artist already and you're writing your own stuff, like yourself, you know, it would be far easier, because in the sense that you don't have to wait for somebody else to finish a page or could do the colors or anything like that. And now, you know, you've got everything ready and you just put an entire month of, you know, work in there. But the other thing is, people want to see what it's about way before time, you know, and know your, you know, show them samples and stuff like that. So what we've got here is PJ and Shibi. We're talking about like web comics. This is what we released as a web comic, because I always wanted to do something like foot flats, and also like you know, what was the other one? Garfield. It's in my head. You know, and Charles Schultz stuff. You know, all that stuff. You know, and sort of like putting all that into a, you know. So the artist for me there is, he's from based in Estonia, but he's Greek. One of about 5 twin brothers, twins, whatever you want to call it, couplets or something like that. But you know, so we're going to probably publish it sometime, but I just can't figure out what to do it as. But the other thing I was just showing before was the zine that actually is done locally, right? So this is a zine that was done locally that Rico was talking about last week. This is Make Comics New Zealand zine that's up here in Whangarei. So these guys got together and, you know, I got sent this, I think it was like 40 pages or something like that. Uh, no, it's a 9-page zine, and they're working on the second one now, right? So, and probably they'll put in a collection later as a print. But you get all these little different varieties of artwork and stuff that they get together and work on at a time. So you got this Judge Dredd looking thing, but you got Batman art, just sample of stuff. And so zines are really interesting. I collect zines myself because
Yeah.
it's like you get to see a sample of everybody's work, and it's so cool to see different art styles. Like, I mean, you look at let me just pop back up to the page there, and I'll show you. So this one here, right on the right of your screen, is by this artist here, right? Shane Evans, who's the one who did this, right? Drew this artwork. As you can see, the similarity in the line art. But this is his first one, so the second one's just come out. So, and that's published by New Zealand Comics from Christchurch, right? And by the guys that do Fun Time Comics, stuff like this, And so the quality of what is being put out now, through the publishers, through small independent publishers, freaking amazing quality, right? It's not like something cheap and rugged.
No, and that's just finding a really good printer as well.
Yeah.
Like the printing quality nowadays is so good with all the technology and everything like that, and laser printers and whatnot. You find a good printer and you are sweet. Like
Funtime have it sweet because Jason, who's the main person running stuff, works in the printing industry. So
there you go. That's
very well positioned.
Yeah.
Part of a long history. I know other cartoonists who this is Adrian's book about New Zealand comics. Gotta
have that.
It's a really useful book. And now, of course, Adrian did that book and then teamed up with Kelly Sheehan and Damon Keane to create their publishing company, Earth's End. So, definitely a must-have. Yeah,
I mean, you can see how hard the last century or so, the history, the people that had come before, right, or are still working, but people have come before, and you get to see how much work that they've put in themselves, right, into this, into kind of like everybody that's come before has tried to make it easier for the next person, and I value that. It's the same thing with me. I want to make it easier for the next person, and pass on some knowledge. I mean, I don't know everything, and by having people like yourselves on here, it's imparting knowledge to whoever's watching. Say, hey, this is what they've learned, and and how they've connected to. So, what I want to get back to talking about, your work with DC, because I need to now go and get all the rest, because I just thought it was the one book because that's all I could get my hands on. But how did that come about? I mean, you mentioned it a little bit, but how did it really come about?
Well, initially it was because my book Hicksville came out, and that was just like a totally solo thing that I did with a small publisher called Black Eye in Canada. And the thing is that it's a graphic novel about comics. It's about the comics industry, about the history of comics, about why people love comics so much, but also why comics break our heart. So the book opened with a quote, which is now a very famous quote that's everywhere, from Jack Kirby, which was "Comics will break your heart." And so it was very much a book for people who loved comics, but also found that a difficult path sometimes. And that meant it was read by comics creators, comics editors, and I didn't know if anyone was going to read it, but within a few months, I had people like Frank Miller and all sorts of people kind of getting in touch and saying how much they liked it, and Scott McCloud and so on. And it sort of snowballed. So I was making very little money out of that book. It was not getting me rich, but it was being read by kind of everybody in the industry for a brief time. And one of those was Heidi MacDonald, I'd known Heidi's work for a long time, because she used to write for the Comics Journal, which I read like the Bible every month when it came out. But by then she was an editor at Vertigo, DC's mature readers imprint, and Heidi got in touch and said, "Hey, would you be interested in writing a fantasy series for us? Because we need to hire someone to write this reboot of the Books of Magic." And and you know, I love your writing in Hicksville. I feel like your writing is really strong. You know how to write characters. It's funny. It's moving, and so on. So it was really on the strength of that. So again, you know, it's the indie small press work was what got me the somewhat better paid DC gig. And so I wrote that comic for them, that Hunt of the Age of Magic, the Books of Magic reboot. I wrote that for about 2.5 years, 3 years. And while I was writing that, an editor at DC Comics got in touch, you know, not Vertigo, but the mainstream DC imprint, got in touch and said, "Hey, we're looking for a new writer for Batgirl." And I should say, when he asked me that, I hadn't really been reading the Bat comics. Like I would get this DC Comps box every month arrive, this cardboard box just stacked full of like all of the monthly titles for the month.
Right.
And I'd pull out the ones that I was really interested in, which were some of the Vertigo ones, a few, you know, I was like later on there was the Alan Moore ABC comics, the Tom Strong, everything. I was really loving those. But mostly, I mean, my heart really is in kind of
over there.
Yeah. I mean, underground alternative comics, that's kind of where I most feel at home, and also European comics. I read a lot of French and Belgian stuff. So I wasn't paying attention to the Batgirl, and I thought Batgirl was still Barbara Gordon, and just kind of ran around having fun. Like that was my idea of Batgirl from the olden days, and so I said, "Sure, sign me up." And so then he sent me a bunch of recent issues, and I was reading through them, going, "Oh my God, was that?" That's not what I was expecting. Because
she's not running around in purple and greys, you know. She's not like laughing and having fun.
Parties. This was Cassandra Kane. She had this horrible, abusive childhood. She couldn't really talk properly. She certainly can't read or write. She's having this traumatic time, and now she's Batgirl. And she's got this mask, this creepy costume, which is like this sort of black leather from head to toe with stitches across her face, and you can't see that. It was like this weird bondage thing going on. I was like, this is not the Batgirl I thought I was going to be writing.
This is not my childhood Batman.
The next kind of 2 years, it was not. I mean, you know, like, look, my favorite Batman is the 1966 TV series, right? It's Adam West. That's right. So it's not the same movie. So I took me a little while to kind of get into the groove. I have to say for a while there, I was working with some really, really great artists, and that really helped. It kind of brought in some good energy, and I did flail around a little bit at first because I was trying to find my feet with the new kind of incredibly dark Gotham City, which I hadn't quite been expecting. I became really fond of the character Cassandra Kane. I really liked her. And I also really liked Spoiler, who was one of her few friends. And I have a complicated relationship with that Wargame crossover. Okay. Because I went over to New York to have a week of meetings with the editors and Devin Grayson, who was writing Nightwing, and Bill Willingham, who was writing Robin, was it, or one of the Batman? Anyway, there was a group of writers and editors, and they were planning this big crossover event. And the way I remember it is we got together and they said, well, you know, you can kind of, there's a lot of leeway with this event. You can kind of take it in all sorts of directions. But we have one stipulation. and that's spoiler must die. we were like, what? That really sweet teenage girl who wants to be a superhero to make things better and has had a rough time, she has to die? This is really heartbreaking. And so
That's DC.
we spent that's DC. This was not long before the body in the fridge. This was where it was at, and I found that really difficult. I ended up kind of stepping away from that aspect of the crossover. So the issues that I wrote, I very consciously kind of made sure that the issues I wrote did not include, because she was like tortured to death everybody. This is a horrible spoiler. Sorry, everyone. But I mean, if you're like, I've got to read this War Game series, but don't give me any spoilers. No. I'm sorry, but spoiler alert, spoiler must die. And it happens over like 3 issues or so, 3 or 4 issues or something slowly.
It's a gimmicky thing, right? It's a gimmicky thing. And this is what frustrates me about mainstream comics. It's a gimmicky thing. Let's change their sex, let's change their ethnicity, let's change, kill them off. Like, we just want good stories, man.
Yeah, I think
to be honest, I do like Cassandra
I
Kane.
think are really exciting to have. Yeah, and I'm not really I'm not a big superhero guy, and I love people kind of messing with them. Like, my favorite Batman comics of all time were by a British small press cartoonist called Ed Pinsent, and he did a series of comics called Illegal Batman because he was breaking copyright, and and there were just these lovely little strange poetic stories about Batman being sad all the time and kind of trying to solve the mysteries of his own heart. And so it was really, they were beautiful little comics. So I kind of love it when people come in and mess with the characters. I'm all for that personally, and take them in all sorts of weird new directions. I think what I found difficult about a lot of what was happening, certainly at DC at the time, is that they weren't really interested necessarily so much in refreshing the characters and taking them new directions. What they wanted to do was just ramp up the shock value of, everybody's dying, everybody's being tortured, women are being horribly abused. But all basically just in the name of having an event that would sell more issues.
Yeah.
And
yes.
That side of it, I was not into at all. And I didn't last at DC much longer after that, actually. But I quite like it when people take the characters in new directions. That to me is quite exciting.
Yeah.
And also kind of in the spirit of those characters. I mean, on one level, I feel like those characters should have been retired a long time ago or put into the public domain. And everyone can play with them, and we can have every kind of Batman you'd like to have. We can have Latinx Batman, we can have queer Arab Batman. I mean, go for it, have fun with it. That's my feeling.
Yeah, that last one would be a bit of difficult one.
Well, I'm totally into that. What I wouldn't.
No, what I mean for the Arabs, but I mean.
But what I find difficult is just that these are corporate properties, and the big priority becomes serving the IP value of the property and trying to milk it however they can, and that to me, it gets a combination of boring and exploitative. And the original creators were exploited like mad by the companies that now fight in court to prevent other people from playing with their characters. So that's my big complaint about them. Yeah. But I did have some fun. I mean, it was really fun working with the people I worked with. And I did write some stories I'm proud of, and I wrote some stories I'm not proud of because, you're on deadline. And I really liked what you said, Nicole, about the first failure being what taught you how to do it much more successfully. I think you only learn how to do these things by trying and failing. Like that is how we learn. And I know people who, sometimes I get this with the students, they're kind of scared to tell the stories they want to tell because they feel like they're not good enough to do it yet. And I feel like, no, tell the stories you want to tell. It's by trying to do that that you become good enough.
Yeah, and you can always, like, even if you tell the story once, it doesn't mean that you can't go back in a couple of years and retell it, like make it better or longer, or you know, like I used to do ash cans. That's how I started. I tried doing the full book and it didn't work, so I said, okay, I'll do ash cans, and they were 10 pages, and some of them are so beautiful that they could be a whole story. You know, like there is one that I've done in my anthology. It's only 10 pages, I think, or 8. And it's about this little monster cafe. And it's actually, I love doing it so much that I went, you know what, this could be a graphic novel. And I spoke to the artist and he was on board with it. So, you know, it's, even if you do fail, like I just failed at my last Kickstarter, but it's taught me so much that I didn't know. You know, that being a creator, you can't just be the writer. You have to be everything. You have to wear the hat of everyone in the business. So, you know, I'm still learning. I've only been doing this for 7 years, and I've got ages of time to be sort of still fixing and writing, and you know, I'm waiting for DC to call me one day, but right now it's just getting my books to the printer. That's what my goal is. You know?
So,
and I think when you you know, when you are not like I know people who they're making beautiful comics. It's not their income. Like it's they have the day job, and which is most of us, right? You know, and and a lot of my favorite comics coming out in the world are by people with a day job. But the day job enables them to do the comics they want without having to earn their income.
That's it. You sit there, and even though you're bored for 8 hours doing the, you know, data programming or whatever, you sit there and, you know, I've got pictures of my comics on my phone. I've got them tattooed on me, you know, and they just make you happy. And you're like, I get to go home and do that. You know, I get to do that at the end of the day. And then when, you know, I stand there and I talk to my work colleague, what are you doing on the weekend? What are you doing tonight? Oh, I'm doing a podcast tonight. And they're just like, no way, you know? So
about my comic.
And it just makes you feel excited. And then that is like a snowball effect where it just keeps going and going. And then you just keep hyping yourself up more, which makes you want to do the work, even though sometimes it does get you down, or you didn't get funded, or you didn't get that project, or that project failed. It's fine. There's more of them out there. Just keep going.
And when it does become your income, you know, it's not always a great thing. Like there are times when it's just your job now.
And then you get into
every
that
job
habit.
sucks, you know, sometimes.
And you're like, I don't want to get up and draw today. I don't want to get up and write a 30-page script because I've got a deadline in a week.
Yeah.
You know?
So I feel like it's you know, there's how you make your living, and then there's the art you make, and sometimes they're, you know, both doing the same thing, but a lot of the time they're not, and it's nothing to do with the value of the art. It's just that's how it's working for different people at different times. Also, the reality is most people working in comics, I mean, when I was doing the Batgirl stuff and I was in New York for that meeting, one of the guys who was writing one of the Bat titles, I think it was Legends of the Dark, one of the Batman titles at the time, he had a side hustle dancing in a nightclub because he couldn't actually pay his rent from writing this one monthly comic.
I agree.
And I was like, okay, all right. So people you think are earning a living from this aren't necessarily earning a living.
Yeah. Some people are, and then some people aren't, and it's just you gotta find the right balance. You know, some people on Kickstarter are banking like 60K, you know, in one transaction, and I'm like, that's somebody's wage for a year. Like, so.
And some people, you know, some people on Kickstarter, the Kickstarter makes $100,000. They might actually only get like 20,000 out of that.
They might even get 5 from it, you know, because
there's so many stretch goals.
Everything.
printing costs and shipping costs.
Yeah, that's the thing you find out once you've done it.
Once you've done it, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
once you've done it, it's like,
That's right.
oh, you wanted that foil cover. Okay, this is how much it's going to cost to print that foil cover. Oh, you're going to send it over there, and then you're going to get that person to print that because, hey, guess what? You only got 5 of that copy, so it's better to print it locally than to actually get, send it over to get lots of printed up, which is cheaper. So now the cost in your profit gets eaten up every time. And a lot of time people, like I've found, right, people who have actually never done it have no idea about the cost of printing specific types of covers.
Yeah.
And all short runs, like they only wanted 1 of that, but if they ordered 10 of that, it would have been the same freaking amount, of printing costs. But now, so now I got to save, maybe if I do print, put a bit more extra in, and I'll get 10 copies, and I'll save the 9 for later for something else, and then send out the 1. But there's so much involved in it, and the printing costs of it. And then, everybody's like, okay, I want, what's my payday? What's my payday? It's like, just hold on, let us get this out there. And, and so that's why, I was going to go into Kyle soon, but I want to show you something that I had to change tactics, right? For a short period, because okay, you gotta put out some, because everybody right now isn't able to be able to afford, there we are. Is able to afford a print comic book, and that gets sent over to them, which is going to cost you a $10 book is going to cost you now $30 by the time you get it. So my idea was like, what if I do a first PDF release, right? From learning from doing this Kickstarter, right? It's taken me, so long to put together. So what if I just do a black and white book as a PDF first look and release that, get some money off that, and now I've got money that I can pay the artist or put aside so I can put for printing, so I have a good enough, I know how much budget I have going into putting it out there as a print comic. So, we put up this, put together this short story book, right? That's, it's basically kind of like my love for this thing, right? Robot Nation, you can spit black and white art. Amazing artwork from a Italian artist, Francisco. So he's got a European English look to it, And this is Tutakaka here, right? This just out down the road from me. I want it, to look, So everything around there looks a bit like the wharf over here, and just I don't want to give you too much of the story, but it's a sci-fi comic book. And it's let me see, it's 2-part story. Let me get to this one. I can show you this one. So the first one's called so we released as a 28 page comic book with 12 pages of one story complete. So it's totally complete. So you don't have to buy any other book, and you've got this to read. And then the other story is 16 pages. So you've got 28 pages in a 36 page comic book, and you get to read it digitally. Pick up your phone, buy it, $3, it's yours, right? And now you got a comic book. Now, if you want a print version, when we release it in print version next year, then you can go, okay, I read it, I like it. Now I'd like to have a copy of it as a print version. Now, there's also the other people who just say, I want a print version, right? I want a physical version. Now they will come to it for the first time. They won't even bother waiting around for the digital. So you're testing I'm like, how do I test the market when it comes to crowdfunding? So it's like, okay, I'll try it this way for this time. See if they will get behind a book for the first time that's just digital. Because people buy digital, right? All the time. Marvel, the top 5, whatever, top tier 5 companies, people buy their digital comic books to a point where they used to put out free digital release with a physical comic book, right? So I'm like, well, let's try this. While I'm waiting for the print comic book to be printed in people's hands in next February, I have something to do here. And so people can still read something that I'm creating, because that keeps people employed, right? We still want to earn a living. And so you still got some money coming in while you're waiting for the other ones to go out. Now, the difference here is I'm trying a different platform as well. So I'm not going to Kickstarter this time. I'm going to fund my comic, right, with Luke Stone's company. And so they only take 2%, right, compared to Kickstarter. So I'm like, okay, let's try as a first look digital. Let's see if people, if even if like in the end they decide, we'd love to have a color. And I'll get, okay, when we put 4 issues out or 3 issues out, now I've got a 90-page comic book, I can get a colorist to come in and color that. So, but in the meantime, you got a black and white comic book, looks gorgeous, right? There's nothing, it's a gorgeous looking book, and it's just the color is that penciler is an inker, and it's just it's a sci-fi story. This one's called Trouble Bobo, sci-fi story with a young couple going to get a job over in Venus, going for the first job, and things happen. But I wanted to tell a family story that's sci-fi and a bit of twist, right? But there is at the moment. You're like with the webcomic, right? So webcomics are really cool. People are into webtoons, and a lot of webtoons are now getting picked up, especially Koreans, right, are getting picked up into 8-episode TV shows, right? There's The Golden Spoon is one that I've watched that I love. Just about a guy, on the side of the road, picks up a spoon, and his life gets switched around, makes a wish, right? Or was that wish? I can't remember. But stuff like that. And Koreans are really doing justice to the webcomic. But one of the weird things is I've noticed by some of this, a lot of those TV writers are actually making webcomics on webtoons and building up a following through webtoons, because that's the biggest thing in Korea, right? And in the Asian markets, right? It's new to, I guess kind of new to the Western side of things, but webtoons is huge. So they've got so much money in it. So you've got the studios coming to webtoons and going, well, what's the biggest seller right now? What's the biggest following? Oh, that is, okay, let's do that. And then it's like, that guy's actually a filmmaker. He's a film writer. Oh, that's even better. I was following this last year. I was going to write an article about it, but it was interesting to see how Koreans are dealing with webtoons and how the Western, community is dealing with webtoons. They're not like, why isn't like these biggest selling webtoons, web comics in the West becoming TV shows? Because
Lore Olympus is that is what I mean. You're right that it's like in Korea, it's a whole pathway where, like, you look at half the K-dramas on Netflix are based on a webtoon. And there's companies that are kind of putting out webtoons, financing TV shows, cultivating K-pop stars. It's a whole big ecosystem that webtoons are really one of the things at the heart of it. And that hasn't happened in the English-speaking world, but there are little pockets of it. And happily, one of them is Rachel Smythe's Lore Olympus, which is currently in production, as last I heard, as a TV series. But you're right. I feel like, but I mean, the whole Korean entertainment ecosystem is unlike anywhere else. It's been an extraordinary phenomenon, and it's changed things all over the place. And now lots of other countries are sort of trying to emulate that, but mostly in Asia. I mean, it's now we have lots of C dramas from China, and there is an emerging, increasingly strong Chinese comic scene as well.
Yeah.
The parts of it that really interest me are there's also a thriving Chinese underground comic scene.
Right.
And alternative comic scene. But a lot of them can't really be kind of officially published in China. So some of them are
because
published
of the situation politically. Yeah.
Yeah,
they could get in so much trouble.
That's right. So it's and a lot of them are sort of just walking a careful line. They're just finding ways to get away with telling the stories they want. But that scene to me is really interesting. There's some great work coming out of that.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that's just recently come out is by Cy Spencer, right? Called Bodies. It's on Netflix. Yeah, it's on Netflix. So
I watched it.
I watched 6 episodes and then I just couldn't handle it anymore. It's like they changed so much about it from the graphic novel, which I read in 2015. Right, I love that series by Cy Spencer. But when they did this, I'm like, the guy's passed away, so I guess you can do whatever you want. But it's just, you don't see that in Korean in K dramas. You don't see a webtoon getting changed from what it did really well at and then switched over to something friggin', what I call bastardized, right, version of it.
Yeah.
Because you don't see that Golden Spoon, as I mentioned before, now is somebody else in the role. It's not a girl now, right? It was a guy, it's a guy. It's a family that's broken and it's poor. It's their family that's broken, that's poor. It's not some other family that's broken, that's poor. It's that family. And so whenever I see stuff like this, I'll give it a chance. But then my brain would just go, it would have been better if you just did it the way it was.
Just left it alone. Yes. There are so many like that.
Now, which then brings me to the crossover thing with Kyle. So let me pop out of that. So, as Dylan was talking about how, they wanted to kill Spoiler off, and that for me made me feel tragic, right? I couldn't believe that that's what they wanted to do. And that's the thing they did with, they killed off Wolverine, they killed off, they followed in to kill off Superman. Superman was done, okay. We can handle that one icon dying, right? Okay, let's not do. But now you're trying to kill off people all the time. You're doing crossovers every 3 months. And I used to be a comic seller, right? And so I was selling, New Zealand comics, and then I was promoting comics. Anything I loved, I was like bringing it out and go, here, like, guys, this is the next thing that you should be getting into. And then comes, what was the Convergence.
Yes,
right?
Convergence
Came in, it just ruined, massive rubbish. It was just a massive rubbish.
Look, there was some that weren't that bad, but the whole thing on a whole, like if you compare that to what was the Brightest Day, Darkest Night, that one, that was amazing, and that was such a good crossover. And Flashpoint, good crossovers, but then it just sometimes, if the writers don't mesh, if they don't communicate properly, if the stories aren't linked, it doesn't work. It's like everybody's just in their own little pocket.
Yeah, rather than doing like a crossover once every 5 years or 3 years, it was like every 6 months. Then it was every 3 months. Then it was like, people don't have that much money.
This is just a crossover series now. That's all this is.
Yeah, that's all it is, right? So Carl, let's talk. I want your opinion on that thing, right? And like the crossover, and why? Like, are you still buying comics, mainstream comics? Are you still investing in that, or have you just moved on to something else? And if so, why? And if not,
I still get the current X-Men title, but that's about it. There's multiple X-Men titles. Don't get any of them because it costs me too much money. And the writing's poor nowadays. I did like what Jonathan Hickman did with the X-Men. He got a bit of creative control and did something a bit different. I quite like that. That was cool. But then when he left, it just sort of...
That's it. And then he goes, it's just a mess now. And I couldn't carry on.
Was it the death of the Scarlet Witch or whatever it was? And it was 5 issues, and it was something else, and then it was... I don't know. So I just gave up on it. But I still get the current X-Men title, whatever it is, if it's Uncanny or if it's X-Men, just to keep me in the... So I've got my run going because I'm silly like that. But yeah, I'm more getting back into the British stuff. I've been reading 2000 AD again, recent stuff. And it's been pretty damn good lately. Like, they just killed... Hershey off, Chief Judge Hershey. So, yeah, like she's.
I'm gonna have to get back into it. There's one thing about like 2000 AD. It's like they have like short stories of all little things, every now and then, and and up to like about maybe 2-3 years ago, I was reading every single issue. I'd caught up on it, but you're looking at something about what 1,100 or 1,200 now. Is it 3,000 issues?
It's quite a lot of issues.
And it's going to be tough to catch up on. But the good thing is,
3,000 was it? Yeah, 3,000. and 2350. That's the latest issue. Well, it's about 3 months old. So,
Yeah.
but Garth Ennis brought this book back.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's
So-
right. Battle Action.
Oh,
Yeah.
Brand new
Oh.
issue. So,
What are
yeah.
we there? Yep.
So,
hmm.
Battle
we go.
Action back
Yep.
in print. So, I think that finished in 1988 or 87. I can't remember. So,
Yeah, Battle. I was reading that when it was just Battle.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it was where a lot of the 2000 AD greats kind of
Yeah.
first really came
John
to attention.
Wagner and guys
Yeah.
like Alex Bryant. And
Carlos
I'll tell you what,
Isabella.
it's super violent. Nazis getting slaughtered by.
It always
by
was pretty fun.
but I'm loving it. I love it. So I've rediscovered my passion for UK comics, and I'm getting back into those sort of books again. That's where it all started, for me. So yeah,
They must be quite expensive to collect these days, right? Because I mean, how often are they coming out now? Because the prices are crazy.
Weekly.
Yeah.
Still weekly. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Battle Action, they've released 5 issues, and I paid $70 for the 5 issues plus shipping.
Wow.
I thought that was all right. I thought it would be more than that. So.
You wouldn't want to do it every week, but
No. So that Battle Action's going to be every year, like 5 issues every year. But Johnny Red is real cool. But I'm hoping that they bring Charlie's War back next year. Yeah.
And is that published by? Is it Renegade who published
Rebellion?
Right,
Yeah.
and they publish a lot. They're publishing a lot of collections of the
I was going to talk about that.
stuff from the 70s and 80s, particularly. And
these here, they've got these. I've actually got one right here. The complete road trip. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Now a New Zealander drew Road Trooper for a while.
What was
the
his
great
name?
Colin Wilson?
Yeah, that's right. I met him.
Colin Wilson.
Yeah, I met him in Christchurch.
Great.
Yeah, he was with Tom Taylor. I met him and Tom Taylor. They were at Armageddon quite a few years ago. And telling him about my love for 2000 AD and asked him a few stories about what was it like hanging out with those guys, or drawing for that comic. And it was quite cool meeting him.
Yeah. Because he's done a number of things with Tom, who of course is another Australian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a cool dude. He was. Yeah, Tom Taylor was cool.
And because Colin Wilson's based in Melbourne these days. He's been.
Is he? Yeah. Yeah. Tom Taylor signed all my. He was quite excited because I was the only one that had turned up with some all new Wolverine single comics so he was quite excited about signing my comic books for me. I was pretty excited too because it was the big hot comic at the time. All new Wolverine.
We have a very own guest in the chat. Hello, Jason.
Hello,
Hey, Jason.
Mr. Lenny. So I was gonna so you talk about collections of of Judge Dredd and stuff. So you got this is like $12.99 when it came out, but it's like the retail's around about $50, I guess, by now.
Yeah.
Talking about Hershey. Look.
Yeah.
Hershey.
Right. Oh, look, that's an old Mike McMahon cover, isn't it?
Oh,
yeah.
I've actually got a Mike McMahon statue. Look at this.
Oh, hold on. Let's bring that up on. I'm trying really hard to get into this, but I'm like having to weigh up the cost of getting me a Judge Dredd statue. You want to tell me how much? Oh, hold on. Don't put it away.
All right.
Let's talk about this. Right? Don't put it away. So how much did it cost? When did you get it? And give us a bit of feedback about that for anybody who's out there.
$200, and I got that from Jeremy at Arkham Comics quite a few years ago.
This goes way back then, doesn't it?
Yeah. So, I was pretty happy when I saw that in his on his Facebook page. He was selling it, so I'll have that. And then I bought this. I bought this like this year.
I hate you.
Oh my God, he took the helmet off. I got to tell you.
Hey, try it on for me, please. We're gonna have to get you on our oh, look at that. Wait. It's going so low. Hold
It's
on.
very convincing.
Yeah. Oh, it looks like a suit. Oh my goodness, that's so cool. The chin. And we all know the greatest Judge Dredd in the world is Carl Urban.
Yeah.
Nobody did it justice than Carl Urban, our very own butcher. And I've got a whole bunch of like the Boys toys. I'm a Boys fan, but I will never ever watch this TV show. But I love the Boys. I have signed Boys comic books and the whole whole bunch of stuff and graphic novels. But I'm just one of those guys that this is one thing I will never want to see in real live action because it's just my most precious thing.
Yeah.
It's like me with Batwoman. And when that came out, I cried.
Yeah.
I don't mind the Boys. I actually enjoyed it. I think it was awesome. Over the top violent. You know, the
it's a violent comic book.
Yeah.
It's going up somebody's
Yeah. And I thought it was. I think it's all right. I think it's pretty cool actually. But Carl Urban is awesome.
Yeah.
I gotta say
when I heard he was doing it, I was just so excited about it. But I was like, I mean, I love it as much as I like. It's like my favorite, right? It was Jeremy that got me into him, right? It was Jeremy that got me into him because he said, "Oh, what do you read?" I said, "I like Garth Ennis, man. I like mature content, comic books. I'm tired of the, just the same old. Give me something." And said, like, here's a freebie and like a #1 free release book they give you. And I still got it. And he goes, "Try it." And I went back and went, "Give me it. Everything. I want everything." And I read every single issue. I said for the last couple short runs that came out, I spoke to Derek Robertson. I said, "When you come to New Zealand, I'll be there with my box. Sign it." Got signatures. He sat there for 20 minutes signing it away. They even did me a drawing, everything.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's why it's so important to me. It's like it's one comic that I've actually gone way out of my way to make sure that I've, But I mean, anything else I don't mind. But this is one thing that I don't want live action of, or in my head, because my head has this all made up.
Yeah. Yep. I get that.
Now, Nicole, you were talking about Batgirl. Do you want to talk about that?
No, Batwoman. Yeah. If you don't know this already, and these people probably don't, I am a massive Batwoman fan, and I have issues with the TV show. Specific hate for the TV show.
I haven't watched it.
I anything past Greg Rucka, I don't particularly like. I like hydrology, and everything sort of past that is. I kind of don't try to read it, but there have been a few moments where they've done like some standalone issues or crossovers and stuff like that have been pretty damn good. But yeah, it's sort of my passion sort of thing. It was the first book that got me into, as you can see, it got me into comics. So she has a very sweet place in my heart. But yeah, if you're talking about butchered TV shows, that's right up there. Like you've got something like Arrow, which is fantastic, and then you make something decent, and then you just butcher everything else afterwards, and it's like, well, what's the point? Don't make more TV shows if you're going to get it wrong. So, and I think that's the problem, that Arrow got quite popular and people really liked it, and then they thought they could, so yeah. But I like the Boys. It's pretty good. But there have been sort of renditions of shows that, like you take Sandman, for example.
Yeah.
I enjoyed Sandman, but there's so much wrong with it compared to the comic. Like you look at the comic is an artwork masterpiece. Yeah. Every single page it should be framed. And then you look at the TV show and it's like, oh, that's not the same.
I haven't seen the TV show, but I read the comic when I was a kid. Neil Gaiman is awesome.
Yeah, it's one of my faves, and I was so excited for the TV show, and then I watched it, and I'm like, I don't know, it just didn't capture the almost hallucinogenicness of the pages.
Yeah.
Like, I found it was just really lackluster, and I was just like, oh, you've just shoved a fantasy character into the real world. That's boring. You know?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I mean, you look at like Lucifer, right? Lucifer, even though it was like everything was changed about it, and he was a nightclub owner now, and so on. But as a TV procedural a cop show, I quite enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Even though I love the Lucifer comic books and everything, and what Mike Carey did with the character was amazing. But as a TV show, you kind of like go, you know what? This is a TV show.
This is different. This is the comic.
Yeah.
This is the TV show. That's it. They're two different worlds. It's like Constantine. I watched Constantine when I was younger, and I loved it. And then as I got older, I read the comic and went, wait a second, this is not how this goes. So you've got to think that Constantine is in a different world than the Constantine in the books. And that's how you've just got to put yourself in that mind space.
So, earlier we talked about Constantine movie sequel coming out. They're classing it as an Elseworld character.
Yeah.
So, so that really works for John, because John is now, he's got a black jacket, right? He's got a black black tie, and he's got a character. So by doing that, they've just said, this isn't DC John Constantine. This is a Elseworld, Constantine, and it doesn't even make you confused anymore. It doesn't even make you question, because you already love freaking Keanu Reeves anyway, right?
Yeah.
And the magic of Keanu being able to do that, and there's such moments in that movie you just can watch it over and over again. And I love that friggin' movie with Rachel Weisz when she goes down into the, into hell, right? When she's in the bathtub, and it's just like, he just puts his head down, and it's like she's like,
I love Tilda Swinton.
Wow.
I thought Tilda was such a good cast for Gabriel. Like, I was like, that was spot on, because Gabriel isn't really technically a man or a woman. Gabriel is like flitters between the two. So I was like, oh my God, that's so perfect. And they did really well. So I'm glad that the same concept and the same team and everything is coming back, because I think they'll absolutely nail it. And I think people of our age who did watch the first one and appreciate it will appreciate the second one even more.
Yeah, and I think this is like when you go to watch this, let me just bring up the Bounding into Comics thing, right? Not that one, because they did an article on it, and I was like so excited, man, when I heard the other one being like the TV series being like thrown out. I'm like, yes, no more friggin' bad reboots. Let me get this.
It is. That's what they are. They're bad reboots.
Yeah.
Look at all the Ghostbusters that are coming out now.
Yeah, I know. We got a new trailer, for a new one.
It was terrible.
The new one is pretty cool. I kind of like. I'm not sure what they're going to do with it, but I watched the trailer yesterday. So it's going to be a hard R-rated comic movie, right? And an Elseworld. And this is the original director, by the way, Francis Lawrence, right?
Yeah.
So Avika Goldsmith, he said, is going to be. There you go. You've got Lucifer there, and it's just such a. Where is that? He talks about Kiva is back. There we go. So Kiva Goldsmith, right? So, and it's going to be so cool because Akiva's a good writer, right? As a film writer of like comic books, he's a great writer. Now, if I remember, he's written quite a few. Where are we? Oops.
But and not only that, how long ago was the first one? What was it?
20 years?
Yeah.
18 years.
20 years,
It
Imagine
was
he
2005.
was pretty good then. Like, what's he going to be now?
It was magic then.
Yeah.
I saw it at the movies. I just like.
So did I.
I
loved it.
Yeah, it was like the greatest thing at the time. It was like, yes, we've got something that's done really well, even though it's not John. Like,
it was heavily criticized when it first came out. People hated it, and then it became this sort of underground cult thing with all of us in that same age bracket who loved Keanu and grew up with him with The Matrix and everything, that really sort of made it what it is now.
Yeah. Let me stop that.
I want to watch that tonight now, by the way.
Yeah, I'm
I
gonna
might
bring.
too, actually. That'd be quite good.
I think I'm gonna
Like,
do
I
the
hate
same
you. I want to
thing.
watch it.
So let's have a look. Like, for those who have never seen it, right? So this is
If you haven't seen it, there's something wrong with you.
yeah. And
It's
here's the
me.
thing, right? Let me just make it.
Okay,
let me
you're
just say
watching
something.
it tonight.
So I'm going to be watching it because I've got it, right? So
Yeah.
here's the thing. You know how they were going to like race swap John Constantine and make him to African man, and I was like, you got an African man who's part of the Elseworlds thing.
Yeah.
Papa Midnight. Papa Midnight, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Papa Midnight is right there. He's an epic character. He's many series written about him. He's part of the lore already. So just put him in there, man. Why do you need to race swap it? But this is the thing about these guys. They'd rather race swap it than actually have characters that are already there.
Cold.
Sure about this?
No.
And you know every line.
Mr. Constantine, I'd like to ask you a few
Rachel
questions.
Weisz, gorgeous as ever.
I know the
Yeah.
circles you travel in, the occult, the exorcisms.
Easy there, hero. It's Dragon's Breath. I thought you couldn't get it.
Demon.
Oh, I know a guy who knows a guy.
I lost the
I
movie
thought the
poster.
truth was pointing me in the right
I moved
direction.
and then I lost the movie poster.
Oh,
I just hate myself for that because it's my favorite one ever.
What if
That-
I told
that
you
huge
the
gun
devil made a
It's on the
blade
cover.
for the souls
the
of
cross
all
gun.
mankind? No direct contact with humans. That would be the rule. Just influence. See who would win.
Demons stay in hell.
Papa.
Angels in heaven.
They call it the balance.
I need to see what you see.
You do this, there's no turning back. You see them. They see you. Understand?
yeah. Might have to watch this again.
That gun. I think I'm going to make it out of foam. Do a cosplay.
I'm pretty sure they sell it online. People have 3D printed it.
What's that is freaking yeah.
And they got such a good character to play Lucifer. Like,
Yeah.
just the smarm that comes off of him. That's what you need.
Go to hell.
And you know, the special effects back then were quite okay. Imagine what they're going to be now. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they're going to be freaking epic now.
I actually have the Xbox game for it. All right.
Yeah.
Oh
And,
my god, no!
And what was there was a couple of years ago. I don't know what year it was, but we went. My sister took us to and her kids for the first Armageddon, right? And was it Emma Thompson? No, not Emma Thompson. Sorry, there was somebody Thompson. I can't remember the name, but she had just put a Wonder Woman graphic novel, and I bought it for my sister, niece, and got it to sign it for my niece. It cost me about $50, hardcover. And I said to her, "Hey, look, I heard somewhere online that you actually, worked on, wrote a Constantine story." She goes, "Oh, and I never did, but drew it, but I never did." And I said, "But you know what? I'll let you draw it for you." So I had this ex-library book, right? Because I was looking around for all these constant, and I took that because I couldn't find anything that was, on hand at the time. And so she drew it in there, and it was like so cool, like having that. And
Yeah.
so he's one of my top 3 characters of all time, like Batman, Constantine, and Punisher, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
You got to do them justice, and Netflix did great justice to Punisher, right? I don't know what they're going to do in the Marvel thing, but I don't need to know. But Keanu as Constantine is amazing, and to see a sequel coming out is going to be the best thing.
It's going to be so
And-
good.
And the same team is the greatest thing, right? The same director,
Yeah.
the same writer, the same actor.
Have you seen the new Hellboy game that they've just teased?
No.
Look it up. They've done the
Okay.
whole game in comic book art to pay homage
wow.
to the original books.
Oh yeah, cool.
I'm
Okay,
getting
let
it as soon as it comes out. It looks freaking beautiful. It's quite linear so far. Like, it's going to be a little bit monotonous to play, I think. But just for the art alone, I was sold. I watched the first 15 minutes of gameplay and I was like, I am there.
Okay, let's have a look at the trailer since we're talking about it. Because, I mean, comic books, right? So it's this Web of Weird. Is that the one?
I have no idea, but I saw it. It just came up on my Facebook feed and I just started watching it. But to transition
let's
that
have a look.
comic book art into a game,
Yeah,
that's incredible. It's incredible. Like, what are they going to do in the future? Like,
Here we go. Let's have a look.
who knows? If it loads.
Hold on. Is it? Oh, it is coming. Sorry, my bad. Let's go
Yeah,
back.
yeah.
There's a bit of a delay there, guys.
Web of the Weird. Yeah. Because you meet all the weird. But check this out. Look at that.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
Like, it looks like you've stepped into the comic book.
Italy, Russia, Scotland, and the US. Your job is to find robots and
Oh, it does too.
links between them.
Imagine playing that in VR.
Wow. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, like, I mean, one thing.
And you
like,
drop
one thing
into the
that I
world.
do-
Like,
Yeah, that looks cool actually.
I loved it. I saw it and I just went, okay, I'm sold. I'm there.
Now,
Like, if
Mike
this is the
Mignola's,
future where comics could go.
wife, right?
And
It's
like,
basically
as
an
much as
animated
it's-
movie, right?
Yeah,
At the
it's
end of
pretty
the
much
day,
an animated
gameplay.
movie with gameplay. But, you know, like,
3D?
even yeah, it's 3D. But even if you don't get the voices correct, like, some of the voices are a bit sketchy for the beginning because they're still in production. It's this first step that is going to inspire so many more people. Like, and his art is
Yeah.
so transcendent. Like, everybody recognizes this art style.
That's it, right?
So October 4th next year.
It's his style. There is nothing.
Yeah.
So there's nothing. You know, you can tell straight away what his art style. Who's that?
Yeah,
right? It's
absolutely.
Mignola, right?
Yeah.
What did
And,
Judge Dredd look cool?
yeah.
Cool as
Oh
game?
yeah! Imagine a Judge Dredd game like that. Like, imagine
Yeah.
like I said, the possibilities are endless at this point to do something
Yeah.
like that. And even the Spider-Man game with its textures and art style is crazy. It's crazy. You know, we've been talking for almost 2 hours, people.
Yeah, but since we're on you know, TV and movies and stuff and games.
Yeah.
So I just picked this up the other day for $8, and I've been looking.
They're bringing out a
this.
new one.
Yeah, but like I've
Have
been
you
watching
seen the new one?
gameplays online.
Yeah.
No. But I've been
Oh
watching
yeah,
the
is it?
gameplays
No,
online.
there's a new one coming out.
Right. So I've been watching the gameplays online because I want to get into it because, of course, they got a TV series coming out, right? With Henry Cavill.
Yep.
Is it Henry Cavill? Cavill.
Henry
So-
Cavill.
Yeah. So PC version, I don't know. Like, when did this one came out? Like, gosh, a few years back. Made in Australia, of course. But I can't remember. It's been a while. But you know, the whole, you know, you got Hellboy movie. Now you got also, of course, the animation. I think I've got a couple of Hellboy comics around. I've got the Corpse, one of the original, you know, ones, the Corpse comic book, and then also graphic novels. But the I want to mention is that Mignola's wife, I think it's Susan or Sue, most brilliant businesswoman I've ever known of, right? When it comes to comics and business. She, like, you listen to some of the little short interviews about what she talks about. If you watch that, you learn a lot about how to do marketing, why they put so much effort into quality over quantity, and why they limit what they put out. What compared to why when you look at everything over across at like Marvel or DC, they put out everything, right? Anything that's out there, they just like put everything out. But like Mignola, they pick and choose what goes out. And now you can see him, like, you've got was it 3 movies? Has it been 3 movies? There's a reboot, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was a reboot movie.
2 movies and 2 reboots, I think.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. But yeah, about that.
And then also the animation, animated movie as well. Now into gaming. So you can understand, he's the art guy, he's the writer, right? But when you look at the person who's behind him is the businesswoman, his wife, who's like going, yep, this is where we should go now, right? Yeah. And this is how we're going to go. So I think we're at 2 hours now. Do you guys, you guys want to, add anything else? And then we'll do our farewells. And I'm going to ask Dylan, since he's a guest, first time on here, to do a little, what is called the words of wisdom for new artists and so on. But do you guys want to, anything else you want to discuss before we finish off?
I'll probably come back on here and talk more later.
Awesome. We'll get you back. Kyle?
Yeah. No, I'm quite happy to just chill out and listen to you guys.
Awesome, man. Hey, I would like to give you an open invite if you're interested to come on a comic show. Not comic show, a toy collecting show, which we do midday on Saturdays. So if you're ever available, let me know and we'll put you on there. I do it with American store, comic shop, and toy store owner over in Texas. So the two of us, we talk about toys and what's coming on. Tomorrow we're talking about Conan and the toys and stuff like that, and the legacy of Robert E. Howard and his character that I grew up reading the novels often. Yeah. So Dylan, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to think about like words of wisdom. Like you got about 3 to 5 minutes, however long you want to take. Just advice of what you've learned over, or just something you want to say to people that we can, share, with them. So, let me know when you're ready, and we'll put you on solo, and we'll take it from there. Thank you both guys for joining me.
I'm totally ready. I've got
awesome. All right. So, words of wisdom.
I wanted to share a phrase which has become one of my mottos as a writer and artist over the years. And I actually first encountered it in an issue of Finder, which is an amazing science fiction comic by Carla Speed McNeil. And there's a scene in that comic where there's a young girl who is trying to write a novel because she loves reading and she's always wanted to write. But she just can't bring herself to do it because she feels like she's not good enough. She keeps trying and it comes out wrong and she feels like, I'm just no good at this. And so she freezes up completely and she's miserable and unhappy for a long time. And finally her brother says to her, he's so sick of seeing her just complaining about how she can't write this novel. And he finally looks at her and he says, you know what? If a thing's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. And I kind of took that to heart. And so whenever I feel like, I've got this story I really want to tell, but I don't know if I can do it justice, I remind myself, if it's worth doing, it's worth doing badly. And that's what keeps me going. It's like, if it's a choice between not doing it and doing it badly, it's worth doing. I'm going to do it badly. And so that's probably my kind of number one advice for people who want to make art, tell stories. If you've got a story to tell, tell it. Even if you're not going to do it perfectly, it's better to tell the story. So that's all I got.
Now, we've got a message from Jason here. Jason goes, good to see Dylan. Has been 20 years since we last talked in person. And that's,
when Dylan was writing 20 years ago. Jesus, Jason.
So when he was writing Batgirl, right? This the one comic that I own of his, apart from of course this one here, Incomplete Works. So thank you guys for for joining me this week. It's been really cool.
Yeah.
And you were right. He's right here. Like it's, he's saying here like good words always encouragement, like what holds me back from drawing, and that's really it, right? I mean, like you just got to do it, man, And it's like a lot of times we fear about what failing, and if you always constantly think about failing, you never take that first step. And every step, like, we'll fail. Like, I mean, like I said, right, we were doing it, I failed at this, so I went back and we put up let me just pop this in here so you guys can see that when we went back and redid it, right? And now I'm so confident about it that I can talk about it and say, hey, you got I'm proud of it right now. I'm proud of this, and I'll put it up there with anybody out there on the bookshelf, and I'll go, yeah. Whereas this, I can't. I don't feel like it, right? But that one, I'll go, look at this book. I'll compete with anything out there because the work that these guys have put in, the colorist and the artist and so on. But thank you guys for joining me, and I really appreciate it. Open invite whenever. We'll see you soon, Nicole and Kyle. Like I said, join us. Welcome to come on. Talk about toys, man. I picked up this week. So
buying random stuff.
Yeah, so random stuff, but I mean, like, then you get like really expensive stuff, and I love to talk about Judge Dredd with you and the toy collecting there. And also, Dylan, thank you so much. I really appreciate you giving me the time, and it's good to hear about your experiences and all the work that you've done. And guys, please check out hicksvillecomics.com. There is an address there. There is an address, website address. Check them out, and hopefully you'll see them on the independent crowdfunding circuit. So keep an eye out, because there's enough money out there to support people. That's right. Any artists coming out. Yeah. Just knowing about it is the first step, and this is what this is about: letting people know what's out there. And so, thank you guys. Do you guys want to say anything? Or we good?
I love you all. Bye.
Yeah, Kakitiano, everybody. We'll see you on the flip side. Thank you for joining us. To everybody watching, wherever you are, be well, be safe. Thank you for checking out PlungeCast. And we do this every Friday night on 7:30 New Zealand time. Please subscribe to the channel, and there's lots of amazing interviews on the Plunge Pop. We've got a writer coming up in a couple of weeks, and it's just going to be awesome. So thank you, guys. We'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody else. Thank you, guys.